I was, like a lot of people, I wrote poetry when I was very young, in journals and in notebooks. And I remember I used to take a very fancy notebook covered in green velvet up to Killiney Hill and sit there and pen poems. And they were all very romantic and about unrequited love and the sea and the sky and things, all of very low quality. But it seemed perfectly naturally to me to write poems. And then as a teenager, I wrote song lyrics, again for very sad and depressing songs that I could play on my guitar. I could play about 3 chords on the guitar. So it was always a very natural thing to write lyrics of some kind. And then as I got older, I thought more about writing in terms of prose. I got very interested in reading novels by people like Hemingway and Dostoevsky, and I wanted to write short stories, and they were always quite serious. But I found them very difficult to start, and in fact I hated writing short stories. I would insist that I should do this, but I found it very difficult, and I'd get very upset because I couldn't start them. I couldn't think of anything to say about the characters. I hated describing their clothes and all these kind of details. And eventually I realized anyway, it was much more fun to skip the beginning and even skip the end and just come up with some middle part. And eventually I think I realized that was a poem. And so the form of poetry sort of, I realized I was much more suited to. But really a turning point for me was as a mature student in my late 20s, I went to university. I'd never been to university before. And I decided I would take my interest in literature a little bit more seriously, and up until then it had been quite romantic and very uncritical, my own writing. And so I went to university to study literature, and I took it, again, very seriously. I was very excited about the idea of going to lectures where people really knew about things, and I really enjoyed listening to people talk about books. And that was really a turning point, because I really began then to look at my own writing critically and to try and work out how I could improve it and how I could change it as well, the different things I could do to it, different voices, different forms, different sounds. And really that was definitely a point where I started to work very seriously and in a more disciplined way on my poems. I think I really like listening to the words in songs. I'd love to be able to sing. I'm very envious of people who have a naturally good voice, and I've been very impressed by people who can sing well, especially, I was going to say folk singers, but people who could sit and sing, just open their mouths and sing loudly and strongly. I find that very stirring. And I find music fascinating in the way that it physically can move you. You find your body moving, you're tapping your foot or clapping your hands and things. So I think the power of music has always been inspiring to me. So I think that's at the back of my head a lot when I'm writing. I'm pleased with the collection. This is Yarrow. It's very exciting to have your first collection. It's not like any other feeling, really. It's quite strange, but it's also very exciting. And it was published about a year ago in 2013. And it took about 10 years to write, really, in that the very earliest poem in it was published around 2003, I think. But, I think a lot of poets feel this, just, you put your manuscript together, and the manuscript is, lots of different poems that you've written over this period of time, and you finally have to put it together and send it to your editor. And this is a great moment. And then there's a moment just when you've read the proofs and it's all about to be sent off finally for printing, when you suddenly realize that you don't like any of the poems at all and you'd really like to cancel, and maybe you should just wait. And luckily, I had a very nice editor, Helen Tukey at Carcanet Press, and when I suggested this to her, she just very nicely wrote back and said, "Don't be silly, it's fine." And it was sent off, and I'm glad that she had to do that, sending off, because I just wouldn't have. I would have waited. And I think any writer surely must feel full of doubt and uncertainty and failure throughout their lives. I think it must be part of being a writer. But also, there are some poems in here. For example, the poem that I'm going to read, which is called "This Is Yarrow," the title poem. Poems like that, which are really so what's the word? Self-contained, and were made with your help, but not necessarily totally by you, if you know what I mean. They came from other places. That you feel that it's not in my place to say whether I like them or not anymore. There they are. And I'm very proud that they're there. And I'm very proud if people actually take the time to read them. It's very, very exciting if someone says they've read your book. And surprising.